All right. Well, welcome to Live from My Drum Room. Today's episode is actually a Track Talk episode, and my guest is my dear friend Rick Marotta. And today we're going to be talking about a song that he recorded back in 1979 with Boz Scaggs, and the song is called Breakdown Dead Ahead. I'd like to welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Rick Marotta.
Thank you. I can hear the applause and
Yes,
whistles and boos from here.
one of those is applause.
I wonder how many people. I wonder how many people we just lost in the first 30 seconds of this.
Oh, welcome everybody. Welcome. When Rick's here with me, I get silly and I just laugh.
You need a little more silly in your life. I think knowing you as well as I do, you get a little caught up in the serious aspect of things where life's too short for that.
I'm a serious guy, Rick. You know that. I take what I do very seriously. I do.
Trust me, I know.
Yeah.
Um,
I know you know.
I'd like to start this with a couple of disclaimers. I just want to say that our original agreement, we've done these before, and you and I had a conversation where I've been misled. I prepared for the wrong thing. You and I had talked while I was with you, staying with you, actually, you and your more important and much more lovely wife, Kelly. We talked about the new concept, not track talk, trash talk. And I was more than willing to do that. And I've been making a list of things that I don't like about certain people who will remain named. Steve Gadd. I mean, I'm constantly saying, everybody talks about great. So I've also started, but because I took it very seriously, because as you know, I take things seriously as well.
You do.
I thought of some others. So I was adding my gripes, not only about Steve, but about Jim Keltner as well. And I thought there would be a lot we could talk about what a horrible person he is. And then we could run down the list of many others. That's one. And the other thing is, I noticed the reason I saw that this is not trash talk, but it's track talk, which is so boring. I noticed that you posted a picture of me doing, I guess, a clinic in Nashville at Drum Paradise, Harry McCarthy's studio there in his place a couple of years ago. And I looked, that's not how I look. And I don't like to present myself that way. I'm not a horribly, it looks like I'm angry, I'm playing and I'm angry and I really don't. That's not the me I want to portray. I think that I'd much rather we showed pictures of me looking like this.
I remember that Rick. That was the Rick Marotta I met in the 80s.
Look how nice he looks. No expression. Or we could always come up with something like this.
Yeah. No, those are all fine pictures. The picture that I used to advertise this before that is a great picture that Tom Caltabiano took at his house about 6 years ago at the pizza party.
I have a Zoom with Tom immediately following this.
All right.
Anyway, that's my gripe about to start. I always have to start with something off topic, and
yes.
I wanted to do that. Okay, let's get back on topic.
We're out of time, Rick, but this has been great. And
to see you.
Stephanie Meganson was at a Steve Gadd drum clinic. I can't say that. Steve Gadd, West LA Music, years ago, and you unexpectedly showed up and gave him a hard time. It was awesome. I remember that. Steve, I was, of course, there on that tour.
You were probably promoting it. It was that Steve Gadd tour with his name on the bus.
Yeah.
Remember I drew a mustache over his mustache?
Well, he asked me to have you removed. He said, John, can you have Rick taken out of here? Johnny. I remember that.
I miss him, boy. I really miss him.
Me too. He's home now. He just got home from Japan Sunday, and he's home for a little while, but he's working like crazy. But lots of people watching today, Rick, and thank you for being here and doing this. And I know I misled you and told you it was you'd get to talk trash about people. And once again, I've duped you as I tend to do, and I apologize.
When
that.
we have dinner, what we do. We sit there and we just say,
We
this
trash talk.
horrible. This guy's no good. We hate this guy. What a horrible personality this person has and that person has.
I know. Yeah. And it's fun. It's fun. It's a great way to pass the night away. But today we're not going to do that. I'm going to keep it positive. By the way, I'm wearing this to promote hair.
Okay, let's start again.
All right. I'm all ears.
We're done.
I'm all ears. Yeah. All right. So we're going to talk about this song, Breakdown Dead Ahead, one of my favorite songs. And I want to set this up for everybody watching at home and listening when they hear this on the podcast. This has long been one of my favorite songs, period. And it just so happens that you played on it. And I didn't know it at the time. I'm going to just say that when I first heard this song back, I guess it came out in 1980, which was when I would have heard it. I assumed it was our friend, the late, great Jeff Porcaro, because Jeff, of course, worked so much with Boz Scaggs. But I found it's interesting. I remember listening to this thinking, assuming it was Jeff, but at the same time thinking it doesn't really sound like Jeff plays with Boz Scaggs. It had a more aggressive sort of, I wouldn't call Jeff an aggressive. He could be aggressive. Do you know what I mean? But he had such a great, almost laid back sort of thing. And this song has this power to it. And again, not in any way to say that Jeff couldn't get that way if he wanted to, but it didn't sound like the Lido shuffle, for example, the shuffle that was played. And then I learned it was that guy, Rick Marotta, also a well-known studio drummer in Los Angeles. Played on a little song called Peg, played on all the Linda Ronstadt hits, played on a whole bunch of stuff. So I found out it was you, and I've always loved this song, and I've encouraged you and Jerry and the Marotta brothers to play this song, and you just ignore me, as you tend to do. So I wanted to talk about this today and get as much as you can remember. I know this was recorded in 1979, released in March or May of 1980. And what you remember of the session, first of all, you remembered where it was recorded. We talked about that. It was recorded at Studio 55. And you said that was Richard Perry's studio?
Yes. To my best of my recollection, that's where we recorded this track. I did a lot of work there at that time. I was working a lot with Richard Perry, and I was also around that time in a band that Richard had put together. He brought in some people from Australia, from England, and me and Nicky Hopkins were from the Rolling Stones were in the band, and it was a really good band. But we did everything there. It's a band called Night. I think it was really kind of an interesting band. But okay. Yes, Studio 55. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And you worked there a lot. So you used your drums. Then theoretically, you were living in LA at the time. Or are you still living in New York and commuting?
Yeah, I was going back and forth. Yeah,
you were going back and forth.
I was living in New York, where I still spend a lot of time in New York in my place. And it's still the same thing. I travel a lot, so I try to travel less. But yes, I wasn't living in LA, but at that time I probably was here for a few months, because when I would come to LA, I would just be working every day and living at the Chateau Marmont at the time. And so these were people I saw pretty much on a daily basis. But this particular record was a little different in that it was a little bit different is what I'll say. And same, I played with these guys, but this particular band, I don't think I've played with everyone in this particular band at the same time on anything else. Certainly with whoever was playing whatever instrument, I played with them, but I don't remember us being together as a band.
Yeah. Yep. Unbelievable lineup of musicians on this song.
But
And
can we ask anyone who has this record to read off the credits on the record? Because you and I both had this, just full disclosure.
yeah,
I said to you before we started, when I was just before I got in the waiting room, that I tried to be a little bit prepared, and I was trying to remember everybody who played on the record, and I remember very, very vividly. I remember very well that Ray Parker Jr. was
mhm,
playing. David Foster was there. Um, I don't remember who played bass, but it says David Hungate, which makes perfect sense.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and Lenny Castro, but the
Don Grolnick
guitars,
on piano.
yeah, it says Don Grolnick on electric piano. I would assume maybe Don was there, because Don and I, we were virtually roommates at Chateau Marmont. We came in and
Mhm.
out. We were constantly together. We were in Ronstadt's band, James Taylor's band at that time. Um, and we had our own band, Ronin, we were putting together at that time. And so we were always playing together. So that makes sense. But I don't remember Don being in the room. I I'm hoping he was. I'm sure he probably was. And of course it says that Lenny Castro was there. But the question you and I have is, I always remember Michael Thompson being in the room, but
Yeah.
I also did a lot of stuff with Steve Lukather at that time, and the guitar part on this record is so phenomenally good. I've actually at the gym, I listen, and this is all thanks to you, by the way. I haven't listened to this song in years until we went to do a drum, what would we call that? Drum sort
The,
of, not a clinic, but a sort of a little,
like a masterclass presentation
whatever that is,
in New
in
Hampshire.
New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And you had said to me, Danger, Breakdown, Dead Ahead. And I thought, really? Yeah, oh, yeah, okay. Because I love Boz, really love Boz. And I listened to it and we did it there. And I remember thinking, my God, this band was good. And this
Yeah.
guitar player, and boy, Michael Thompson. But, Lukather, it could easily be Lukather. I just wonder who it is credited on the record. Because Wikipedia, which is where you and I looked,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
is not 100. I'd love to know if anybody has the record. I don't know. I don't think I have the record around. And you and I both have our vinyls sort of stored.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, exactly, Rick. And either way, though, like you say, the guitar solo is just ridiculous. And I'd love to get an idea from the people watching here. I know this won't translate too well when this becomes a podcast and people are listening to this, but how many people actually know this song without having to play it right now or look it up on iTunes? How many people are actually familiar with this song? This was definitely a charting hit song for Middleman. Um, it's a great, great tune, and I think it's some of Rick's greatest drumming. I just think the part you came up with, Rick. So let's dive into that. Did you get Bill Schnee was the producer, I guess?
it says Bill Schnee produced it, and I'm looking at it, and it says produced and engineered by Bill Schnee. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Did he give you, and I know you worked with him a lot, did he give you pretty much free reign to come up with your own part, or did he have an idea? Did he say, I want it to have a shuffle feel, or did you just hear the tune and
It's a shuffle as soon as you start playing.
as soon as you start playing? Okay, that's what I figured. You felt that.
And David Foster was there, so David ran the session.
Yeah, he's a
Um,
co-writer on it, but he probably ran it. Yeah.
he
You, oh,
he he had to have run the session, and I'm looking at the album cover, and it's all a blur, but it looks like Jeff Picaro played. So we should probably end this now because I didn't play drum.
no, you did. Jeff played on JoJo, and Jeff played on a couple other tracks. Joe Vitali is listed on a track. I saw today. The great Joe Vitali. Joe is on. What song is Joe on? Track number 6, which is "Do Like You Do in New York." So Joe's on that one. You're on Breakdown Dead Ahead, and you're also listed on track 8, Isn't It Time? And then the rest is Jeff.
Well, you know what? If anybody comes up, we'll just go with the disclaimer that says Lukather. But it also says it could be anybody. I think on this particular track it could very well be Michael Thompson, but I don't know. Boy,
Yeah.
guitar parts. I don't want to belabor this, but the guitar part on the record is phenomenal. And also, you got Ray Parker Jr. playing. When Ray played those single note or those rhythm things, he was like a rock. It's like playing a rock, So, but anyway, back to what you were asking me about what they said. Normally, at that time, especially, we'd walk into the room. Now, if Foster was in charge, he might have handed out charts, and Foster is no fool, as you well know. He could hand out charts note for note, or he could hand out charts with maps. With that band, I would think, especially listening to this, we'd probably handed out sort of a lead sheet of sorts. It could have been one page with just repeats and DSs and codas and things like that, or it was a couple of pages. It might have come from a copyist, but basically on those sessions, I'm generalizing now because trying to remember back that far these specifics is very difficult because you're going from one session to another, as we've had that conversation before. I would say that they probably Boz and Boz and maybe David, or just Boz stood there because of course we know he plays the shit out of the guitar. Boz might have played it and sang it to us, and we would have marked whatever we had on our sheets. But I do remember when I did this, I was always aware when I was in someone else's venue or someone else's territory. And this was Jeff Porcaro's territory. And so I like, you know me well enough, John, to know that when I talk about these things, I don't talk all about just the music. There's always other things going on these records. And in this particular case, I had not known Boz really before this, but Jeff I knew very well. And I remember Jeff worked with him all the time. And so I'd see Boz occasionally in and out, be in the studio, and I didn't know if he was a friendly guy, and I'm not Mr. Effusive. But when I had to do this record, I had already had a conversation with Jeff about this, which made me really want to contribute. You knew Jeff. Jeff said to me, Rick, Boz Skaggs, he was talking about Boz. Jeff and I were, we were hanging somewhere. And he said, I want to tell you a story. He said, one night we had done, I think he had done, was it Silk Degrees or one of Boz's first real hit albums?
Silk Degrees.
Lodi Shuffle and whatever was on it.
Yeah, Lido Shuffle, Lowdown.
Kind of really, I think it bolstered Boz's career. And he said one night, Jeff told me one night he was at his house, his old place that he was renting or something. And he was just hanging with this girl that he was dating, whoever that was at the time. And he said, there's a knock at the door, and there's this. Did I tell you the story?
You did, but it's a great story. Yeah, you did.
There's a real heavy rainstorm, and he's in LA, and I think it was in the hills. Might have been in the valley. I don't know where that was. But anyway,
it was in the valley. Yeah.
The knock at the door, and he goes to the door, and he opens it, and there's Boz standing there with a trench coat on, drenched, and he's just standing and pouring. And Jeff goes, Boz, what are you doing? What's happening? He goes, hey, Jeff. He goes, come on in. He goes, no, I gotta go. But I just wanted to give you something. And he opens his coat and he gives Jeff a gold album. Like the ones we have the ones you have behind you on your wall and stuff like that. He gave him a gold record, or he gave him something like that. And Jeff was, that's great, thanks, but you didn't have to come here in the middle of the night to do that. Was night, it was. And he said, yeah, no, I really wanted you to have it. I really appreciate what you've done and what your contributions were on this record, and I really appreciate you." He goes, "Thank you, I appreciate that too." And then Boz reached in his side of his jacket, waiting, pouring, he looked like a drowned rat, and he pulls out an envelope and he hands it to Jeff, and it was a check for, I want to say, because it was like, it hit me like a ton of bricks, something like $30,000 at that time.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
It was an insane amount of money. And Jeff said to me, he knew I was trying to buy my own house. And he said, "Here's money to put down at that time on your house." So now this is what I know about Boz Scaggs, and I've worked with a lot, as you know, a lot of people, and there was nobody that was like that. And when I heard that, I knew I had to really not be prickly and be as supportive as I could. Not expecting, I didn't want to check. I was appreciative for Jeff, because I know how hard it was back then, man. It doesn't matter how busy you were. Jeff Porcaro couldn't buy a house for himself yet at that time. He didn't have the money to put down on a house. One of the greatest recording drummers that ever lived. And it just goes to show you. And Boz was aware, appreciative, and forthcoming about it. So I want to say that about Boz. Now, the session, I show up at the session. He was great. We were all great. Everybody at that time was under the influence of something or other. Whether it be we're having a drink, or someone was smoking a joint, or someone was taking a hit. So my recollection is everybody was experimenting and indulging in something at that time, but not over the top, except Foster, who was the ultimate and consummate professional at all times. I never saw Foster do anything weird. So we started playing, and what I remember listening to this, when I listened to it, because you're the one that brought it to my attention, I listened, I went, I wouldn't really know that was me, because, as you know, my tendency is to play slightly on what you and I call the left side of the beat. And there's the right side of the beat. And Jeff could play, you could move things around, but I always felt Jeff played sometimes slightly on the other side. And he would say to me, I remember he said to me when I first met him, he goes, "Man, you dig a very deep ditch." And I took that as one of the best compliments I ever got.
Yeah.
There's two compliments that I really, really enjoyed. So on this particular track, it interests me that your view of it was that I was being aggressive, whereas when I listen to it, I think, yeah, I'm not as left-sided as I normally am, but it was all about driving the band, the band. Yeah. On that particular song. And I don't think there could have been, I miss those days where you're all in the same room at the same time. And it couldn't have been, I think that it really contributed to the rest of the way the rest of the guys played. And that was something that I remember from that and those kind of sessions. Because I listen, it's mostly staggered little dotted notes with my foot, or it's really mostly quarter notes, if I remember correctly, right?
I think so, but I'd have to, well, we can listen when we play the song, maybe we'll be able to really hear it clearly, but and you described it better, Rick, when you said driving. When I said aggressive, that was probably the wrong choice of words, because it's just such a driving, but there's so much muscle.
The opening fill, the triplets at the top, I did listen to it. The opening fill is pretty aggressive. And what I want to say, I don't know if you and I talked about this, at that time, when I would play a fill like that, I would often ask them, I would just say, do me a favor, open up pots for the drums and play the intro again,
Hmm.
but on a separate track, stereo track, all the drums. Then they didn't care. They just opened up. I'd be on. I'd have another 10 tracks or whatever. I don't know. I don't think we did it digitally back then. I think we were still going to tape 24
Sure.
track. But
Yeah.
there was room. I don't know how, but I would play, I would double that kind of a fill. And I'm trying to listen because at the time, I could play like triplets. If I played straight triplets across the drums like this, you know, I would then double it. I've done that uh, several times, and I might have done that on that song.
Yeah.
Just those fills wherever.
Those tom fills. Yeah.
Since I did that as a signature on that song,
Yep.
which is by saying that I just played triplets, but since I did it and I let it reappear later, the same fill, and I listened to it, it was kind of sounds like maybe the drums were doubled, and I like doing that. Not all fills, just
Yeah. Yep.
some for
Yeah.
some reason. I think triplets fit into that for me perfectly.
You never mentioned this to me before, and now that as I'm visualizing, thinking of that song in my head, that could be exactly what it is. Just those tom fills, because they are so. It doesn't sound like they just move the faders up. There's like a thickness to it, like you
Yeah,
say, that
yeah.
comes
Oh,
with doubling the drums. Like that
yeah,
that thickened sound,
yeah.
which we'll get to in a minute. I was going to ask you about the drums. Were you playing? Do you remember? Were you playing two up top? And I know you played two floor, or you playing maybe three up top in those days, or just
Sounds to me like I had an 8, 10, 12, or an 8, 10, 13, 14. It sounds like an 8, 12, 8, 10, 12, 13, 16, and probably I had an 18
yeah,
where I didn't hit it probably, but I would put my sticks on it. 18 was like a table for me.
yeah, yeah,
But I'm trying to remember what it might have been my original recording series kit at the time that I had brought back from Japan when Steve had gone on and said, we're with Yamaha and your drums are waiting there for you. When I was doing this tour, I was going to do a tour. And sure enough, I went to the rehearsal and there were my cases with my name on it and all this Yamaha stuff that I was taking back with me to the States. That might have been them because it was the first time that we were
mm,
using two-headed 8, 10,
yeah, yeah,
those concert toms. So it sounds like it might be an 8 and a 10, 12, 13, or an 8, 10, 13, 14. Then always a 16 on my right side. And I'd add an 18 on stage, but I didn't always play it in the studio unless I was playing a part that I came up with that was, that kind of Jerry Marotta, more of a Jerry Marotta part. And
yeah,
uh, so that's the best I can think. Sometimes I would do it, the triplets, and I'd start on an 8, 10, 12, 13. And then when I did it again, I would start it on the 12, 13 and go across that way to like 12, 13, 14, 16. So
mm,
you have
mhm,
two drums layered on top of each other, but
yeah,
I
yeah.
think I did that on that particular one.
Okay. Incidentally, before we forget, today is Hagi's birthday. So just talking about Yamaha and you getting your recording custom drums back in the 70s
That was
before they,
Hagi. That was all
so
Hagi.
it was all Hagi, Mr.
Happy birthday,
Yeah,
Hagi.
Mr. Hagawara, Hagi-san, our friend. All right. Yeah, Rick, that's very, and the snare drum, probably, I'm guessing, probably a Ludwig Superphonic is what you were using in those days, I think, right? Or did you use a,
No, I don't know for sure. You know, I, oh,
yeah, I know it's a long, it was,
really good question. I have a snare drum that I was using a lot back then. Nico Bolas wrote me a note on it, and I kept that note for 40 years. I didn't change the head on it, but I think it was a Yamaha. I tried to,
hmm, maybe it was a
here
Yamaha.
in Los
Yeah.
Angeles, in New York, I had a couple of different snare drums I would use occasionally. I had more snare drums out here, but I think I think I think it might have been a Yamaha.
Hmm.
snare. I don't think it was a Ludwig snare, but I'm not sure. I
Okay.
could go
Yep.
down and look in my gear and in my snare case and see if I find one that might have been it, because I didn't get rid of those. But it was more than likely. It sounds to me like it was a um, chrome, not a wooden snare,
Hmm.
with an ambassador top, head on top, diplomat on the bottom. Um, and Yeah, I think it was a chrome. I think it was a chrome Yamaha snare out of the box.
Yeah. Metal
I
snare.
don't.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay. And cymbals back then probably were like A Zildjians in the 70s.
Yeah,
Kind of what,
yeah.
yeah.
A's, or when did the K's come out?
They started making them in the US in the early 80s. So it would have been after this record. Um, and the hi-hats sound like straight up like new beat.
Yeah,
Um,
I had
you
the
know,
new beats at that time, but I don't
yeah,
remember if I was using 13s or 14s. Some guys would pull out 15s.
yeah,
Uh, but I tried them and they always felt too clunky to me. So
yeah.
a 14, a lighter 14, or a 13. I often used 13s because of the transparency I got from them.
Hmm.
Um, but then I do use 14s occasionally, but it would not surprise me if those were 13s, 13s or
Okay.
14s.
13s to 14s. Yeah, they have a nice sort of in the mix anyway. They have a nice medium pitch, which I attribute to more of a 14 than a 13, which can
Could be. It could be
could, but
because I was doing a
yeah,
lot of road work at that time, and I would take the 14s with me on the road, and they might have sent R&R might have brought my road kit to the gig. It could well have been this green maple kit I had as well. I wish I could remember. I for some reason I see myself throwing my black Yamaha toms across Studio 55 to Richard Perry's dismay when I was getting these drum sounds were not to my liking, but it wasn't on that record. It was on something else. I think it was a Pointer Sisters record at 55, where I went ballistic drums and just threw them. I literally threw them. I
oh,
remember throwing my tom toms across the room because they sounded like shit and I was an idiot. Um,
I remember that story. Yeah, and then you quit the session, I think, and JR came in and finished it or something because you guys were joking about that on a different podcast.
not true. I hate myself if I did that.
Anyway, talking about that session, so the shuffle feel just came naturally. That was you heard the tune.
Well,
That's
it's
what it
you
was.
know,
Yeah,
it's you hear when you hear
yeah,
and I'm gonna assume it's Ray Parker. When you hear Ray playing
yeah. That's him playing that part.
Hungate,
Okay.
and you got Foster, it's they're playing. These guys know what they're doing. They know it's
Yeah,
different between
yeah.
straight eights and a dotted shuffle feel. But the shuffle it wasn't a kind of a bebop feel. It was a driving,
Right.
straight straight forward shuffle feel. And because I knew that Jeff, for me, I didn't usually do uh quarter notes on the bass drum in a shuffle a lot, but Jeff would do that. And because I knew Jeff did it, I kind of wanted to emulate Jeff. And I might have played it. I'm sure I played a shuffle sometimes, but I think I wanted to just drive. I think I wanted to drive. Like there's certain records and grooves where I just feel like, I wanted to feel like there was if there was a truck coming
Mm.
down the street and it hit me, it would be like running into a wall and it would just disintegrate. It's just the image I would conjure up in my head of,
So,
of the
do you
music
think,
itself.
Rick? Again, this is just a speculation or a guess, but do you because Jeff worked with Boz so much, and he had done Silk Degrees before this. Do you think he might have recommended you? There's many stories. There's the story I just finished the Jim Gordon book, and it's a well-known story that when they were recording, um, Jeff recommended they bring in Jim Gordon to do Ricky Don't Lose That Number. Jeff said you should get Jim Gordon to play on this song. And I wondered that when you were saying this, if he said you should get Rick Marotta to play on this. Maybe they were looking for something a little different kind of shuffle than what he does. And
I don't know, but I would be hard pressed to think that they would replace Jeff doing a shuffle, because it wasn't that I was going to play it better than Jeff. It wasn't that I was going to play it different.
Yeah.
It was that I was just going to play it and wasn't going to be Jeff. And I think that it might have been Jeff could have been busy. He was a very busy guy.
Yeah.
And he said to them, he might have known, they might have run it down. And he said to them, I knew Foster. I worked with Foster before many times. And I knew Hungate, and Hungate was in Toto with Jeff.
Yep.
I knew all those guys. We all worked together. They might have just said, and I knew Schnee, and he might have said, Marotta's here. Marotta's in town. Why don't you call him? Because he would do that so many times. I mean, I can't tell you how many times he's done that. Peter Erskine is that kind of guy. Gadd is that kind of guy, or well, used to be. Now he just hoards everything. Keltner is that kind of guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't venture a guess as to what was transpired, but that is definitely who Carl was. And I was very aware that I was in his seat. That was his chair. That wasn't my chair. Boz was, by the way, could not have been nicer on forever about, he's a very appreciative guy, and that always makes a difference to me, because some people just credit themselves for everything, like me, but he credits everyone around him. He credits the people around him. He's very, very respectful and appreciative, and really, really talented. But that's the. I mean, remember what we're talking about. We're not talking about Mahavishnu Orchestra. We're not talking about Tony Williams. We're not talking about Vinnie Colaiuto or Keith Carlock or Weckel or any of the amazing Tommy Breckline. We're not talking about any of these things where guys are just all over the drums. We're talking about what I was really good at, which was sitting down, hearing a click or hearing a song and plowing straight ahead, keeping everything. That was what I'm kind of known for, is keeping everything sort of together so people could feel comfortable doing what they want to do. And then when I hear the guitar on there, I just think, between me and Hungate and whatever else was playing, and Ray Parker, they had a great place to sit and be free. It opens up that freedom, and listen to that guitar all the way through, every note of that on guitar. Yeah. When I listen, I don't really listen to the drums. I listen to what a great song it is, and I listen to this guitar stuff. It's just otherworldly. It's really, really, really special.
I'm gonna play the tune now, and my last question before I play it is, so when you tracked it, the basic track, there was no solo yet. That came later, so you don't.
That's a very good question. I don't know the answer.
Yeah. Okay.
I know that when we played it, I think solos were going on. I think.
Oh, okay.
I really do, because that's the way. That's why you've got Ray Parker in there, and Ray Parker Jr., and that's why you've got. I really think that we played it like a band in a room. I do. I do remember going in. Yeah. I kind of tell you, I do remember going back and listening to playbacks with David, with Ray Parker Jr., with the other guys, and talking about it, not burying it, not playing it until we couldn't see straight, and really loving it. I do remember that.
Okay, and I was going to save this question for after we play the track, and I'm gonna ask you this question after the track. So I'm gonna play Breakdown Dead Ahead, Boz Scaggs, recorded in 1979. I don't know the month, but it says 1979, released in 1980. Rick Marotta on drums, a host of other unbelievable session legendary musicians on this record. And here it comes. Pay close attention to Rick, of course, and to this guitar solo.
Call you, you ain't in. What's this cold reaction? Where you been? Ooh, baby, laying it on the line. This is last call. You say that's all you can take. It's fine. I'm sorry, but told you no more lying, no more tears falling. Stop your crying. Ooh, baby, I'm your man. Before you go back to your sidetrack, baby, understand. Danger, there's a breakdown that I hear.
Get that off.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow.
I wanted
Wow.
people to see what I looked like back then when I was playing this. This is what those guys. No wonder they sounded so good. I was so good looking. They had to keep up, right?
They had to. A couple of things.
That what I really appreciate you. I don't know. A lot of people may have never heard that song, and I really appreciate you reminding me about it when we did that master class. And yeah, I like the song. I mean, everything about it I really like. And if you listen to that sort of '80s music, it was a good record. That was a good record.
Great
And
record.
Sinead, my God, Sinead was a good. He could master a record too. He was really. He was a very weird guy, but he was a very really. You sit in a room with him while he was recording with him. He didn't have a whole lot to say, but he really knew his way around a console recording.
And I think of him more as an engineer than a producer, but he's listed as a producer. But I got to say, I said before we played the song, I said, listen to Rick on the drums and of course the guitar solo, but David Hungate. Oh my God, the bass line in that song. I mean, I'm listening to it going, how could I, I mean, it's the whole thing, like you said, the whole package. Ray Parker's rhythm playing, those sort of upbeat, strums that he's doing to just the accents, and the solo, I mean, it really does sound like Luke when you think about
solo stuff. But Lukather and Michael Thompson, very similar sounding guys at the time. Michael Thompson is he's otherworldly as
Monster.
well.
Luke,
It very, very well may be Lukather. I don't know, but I always remembered, I kind of always thought that it was Michael Thompson in the room. Look, I could be wrong. I wish somebody had the record there. I was looking here, it's all a blur. Yeah.
So let me ask you, do you have a recollection, Rick, of how many takes you guys did? Was it?
I do not. I have to say that that I find, I don't think it would have been that many takes because you look at the room, who you got in the room, they're all first and second take guys, all of them. And they may well have come in and overdubbed a guitar solo. I don't remember 55. See, I'm trying to think about the leakage. I don't remember being in a booth in 55. I would go walk outside the control room, and my drums were usually set up here. If I remember correctly, behind me was the glass, the control room, and the band was here. That was for the Pointer Sisters, for Night, for a lot of records we did there. That was the configuration I kind of remembered, unless they put me on the other side of the room looking into the control room. But I always thought the control room was behind me. I'm so sorry. I wish I could be more.
No,
remember more of it.
It's a long time ago, Rick. I appreciate you remembering as much as you have, and a lot of sessions ago. So, but I appreciate you saying that too about reminding you, because it's always been, to the point of me driving you crazy. I know one of my favorite songs that you played on, and one I think, you've recorded a lot of songs, let's face it, and one I think you personally tend to overlook. You're always quick to tell everybody you played on Peg everywhere we go. Out to dinner, hey, waiter, did you know that that song Peg? That's me. It's
Aren't you Jerry Marotta's brother?
Aren't you Jerry Marotta's brother? Hey, do me a favor. Tell Jerry he's my favorite drummer.
He knows it already.
Yeah. No, but it's we kid about this stuff, but it's such a great song, and I'm hopefully we've turned some people onto it maybe that didn't already know it. But it seems like a lot of the very educated drummers that tend to watch this podcast are well aware of it and love it. So you're getting lots of great comments here. But
I don't see any of these comments, by the way. I just have to listen to your voice. I don't. I'm better off not seeing the comments. Get this guy off the stage. Get this guy off the Zoom.
Yeah, yeah.
Unzoomify.
Well, before we wrap up this episode, Rick, is there any more trash talk you want to trash talk anybody besides me and Steve Gadd and Jim Keltner?
I would like to say a couple of things.
right.
One, I just 2 days ago
I'm all ears.
I got a email from Andy Newmark,
Oh,
the lovely, my old roommate and one of my earliest influences. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be playing drums if it weren't for Andy. And I got an email from him. Rick, I would read it to you, but it's too much. Rick, I really love what you did on Anticipation of the Carly Simon live album and video. I don't know if it's 40, 30 years later, however long it is, that Andy may have just seen it, but he went on and on about it because Andy Newmark played drums on Anticipation. I went to London. We were new roommates and best friends. I flew to London, might have been my first time, and stayed with them and Carly, the band, and Carly, just hung out with them for a week or two. In England, in London, while he was cutting it with Paul Samuel Smith. And so I was there in the studio when he did a lot of those records. And I said, well, I wrote him back. Well, Andy, I was just trying to honor the great parts. Oh, you also wrote about the press. He said, and that press role you play in it somewhere towards the end, he goes, oh, it was perfect and all that kind of stuff. And I wrote back and I said, I'm just trying to honor the great part that you played on the record. In this inimitable way, went, we're live, it's New Hampshire, we're live, we're outdoors.
Yeah.
It's the concert that we took on the road.
I love that. Yeah.
And I'm playing with sticks. And Andy goes, yeah, but Rick, I played brushes on the song. I wanted to just say, ever want to go to school as a playing drummer, somebody that plays really interesting, really artistic, and in my opinion, as close to perfection, listen to Jim Keltner on almost anything he did with Ry Cooder. If you listen to anything on the Bop Till You Drop, Chicken Skin Music, any of those records, it's music school. If you listen Down in Hollywood on Bop Till You Drop, I listened to it today. I listened to it at the gym a lot. I was talking to Steve a few weeks ago. Actually, it was before. I got sick. He was in LA and we were talking. He was coming to town, so we were catching up. And I said, "Well, I'm going to see him at Catalina's." And I got sick. I got COVID that the week he was here. But he said something to me that really. He goes, "Hey man, are you playing enough? Because I haven't been playing out that much, and this summer was rough on the vineyard, as you well know." And I said, I've been really working on the drums in my studio now, and it's pretty much because Gadd sort of pushed me and said, "Listen, stop fooling around, get out, do more playing," because that's in Steve's nature. He plays every night, and his books and everything, he does that stuff all the time. And I get so sidetracked with all this other crap I have around in my studio and stuff. But I've really been working on it, and I can't wait to do some. I'm going to write some stuff where I get to play more drums, and I'm going to just do it.
That's great.
And the other thing is, go to school listening to Jim Keltner. When you listen to things like him playing 16th notes and on Bop Till You Drop, on Down in Hollywood, or any of the songs on any of those records, it amazes me. He's not, people don't realize that Keltner is famous for playing with John Lennon and playing with George Harrison and Mad Dogs and Englishmen and on and on and on and on. All these great bands, but people don't sometimes realize the influence he had on so many drummers and musicians all over
Yeah.
the world with his outside the box playing. Certainly influenced me.
Yeah.
That's all I have
Amen.
to say. That's as much trash talk as I can do today.
That's great. I love it. I love it. He's a treasure. He's a national
I
treasure.
don't like
Just-
seeing his name on a hat in your house, but I like talking about how good he is.
and you're a national treasure too, Rick, and a sweetheart and my dear friend. And I thank you for being here today with me. And everybody thanks you. Thank you all for watching today. A big hand for Rick Marotta.
Thank you.
He will be
Thank
back.
you.
Yep. And Rick, we will talk about some of these other songs we talk about so often. So we'll do this again real soon.
You know, we should also do a day where we talk about other drummers, other musicians, other stuff. You should have guys rip other people apart. Like you should get somebody on there and say, you know, that Marotta, not that good. Listen to the mistakes he made on this and the mistakes he made. I can give him notes on the shit that I screwed up.
It's a deal. All right.
All right, man.
All
We'll
right,
talk
Rick.
very soon.
Okay, hang tight for 1 second. We'll say goodbye in the room, but I want to thank everybody for watching. All right, well, that's my show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a like, leave me a comment. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done that already. And the podcast is available on all the podcast platforms, so download it. And remember, no drummers are ever harmed on Live from My Drum Room or Track Talk. And drummers, when in doubt, leave it out. All right. Again, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again real soon. See ya.